After 5 years of marriage, I caught my husband cheating. Now I'm married to a CEO. Before we begin the story, make sure to subscribe to our channel and never miss more incredible stories every day. The moment I opened that hotel room door is burned into me like a scar. I wasn't supposed to be there. Mark had told me he was working late, catching up on a client dinner, and I believed him because I had believed him for 5 years. But when Claire called, her voice low and urgent, she said she had seen his car parked outside the downtown Marriott. I drove there with my heart pounding, telling myself it was nothing, maybe a business meeting, maybe coincidence. I wanted to believe. God, I wanted to believe. I used the spare key card Mark kept hidden in his briefcase. He thought I never looked in there, but I did, just once, after he'd forgotten to pick up dry cleaning, and I noticed the card then. Tonight, desperation drove me to slip it into my purse. The hallway smelled of carpet cleaner and stale perfume. When I pushed the door open, I caught him mid-laugh. He was shirtless, sitting at the edge of the bed, and there was a woman behind him, draped in the sheets like she owned them. "Emily," he said, voice cracking. My knees nearly buckled. My husband of 5 years, the man I cooked for, the man I defended to friends, the man who once told me I was the only person who understood him, was caught half-naked with someone else. The woman smirked. "I guess you didn't mention you were married." I couldn't breathe. All the air in my chest turned to stone. 5 years, Mark," I whispered. 5 years I gave you." He stood, fumbling for his shirt. "It's not what it looks like." "Don't you dare," I snapped. My voice was shaking, but sharper than I'd ever heard it. The woman rolled her eyes. "Relax, sweetheart. You're better off without him." Mark shot her a glare, but it was too late. My world had already split in two. I stumbled out of the room, ignoring his calls after me, ignoring the sound of his footsteps. I drove home with my hands gripping the steering wheel so tight, I thought it might snap. At home, our wedding picture hung above the fireplace. His arms wrapped around me, both of us smiling like we had forever in front of us. I pulled it down and set it face first on the floor. My fingers shook as I texted Claire. "You were right. I caught him. It's over." But even then, in that moment of clarity, a voice inside whispered, "You don't even know the half of it yet." Because catching Mark cheating was only the beginning. What I uncovered after that night made betrayal look like a warm-up act. And the man I thought I'd lost everything for wasn't just a cheater. He was a liar, a manipulator, and something far darker that would almost ruin me before I found my way to someone who finally saw my worth. That night, I fell asleep alone in our bed for the first time in years, staring at the empty pillow, wondering how much of my life had been a lie. And I had no idea the lies I hadn't uncovered, yet were so much worse. I met Mark at a neighborhood fundraiser where I worked the check-in table, and he worked the room. He was handsome in a clean, catalog way, pressed shirts, easy smile, the kind of man who never seemed to sweat. When he reached my station, he said, "You run this like an orchestra," and I felt seen in the way that quiet, competent people rarely are. We dated on weeknights over cheap pasta, and on Saturdays over farmers market coffee. He remembered my tea order, texted good morning memes, and thanked me for the smallest things. "You always make life smoother," he'd say, and I'd glow at the word always because it sounded like a plan. The first year of marriage hummed. We rented a small house with a creaky porch and painted the kitchen ourselves, laughing when the rollers slipped and left my cheek freckled and mint. He insisted we keep separate checking accounts for freedom and a joint one for the boring stuff. It felt modern, fair. When I suggested we sit down once a month to review bills, he kissed my forehead and said, "You do details at work all day? Let me manage the numbers so you can breathe." It sounded like kindness. Later, I would recognize the first stone in a wall. Cracks didn't arrive like a thunderclap. They tapped like a persistent leak. Work trips stretched later. Client dinners added an extra round. His phone lived face down, locked with a new passcode he brushed off as IT paranoia. When I asked, he smiled. "You worry too much. That's your brand." He'd distract me with takeout and a Netflix list he curated to match my moods. It worked, mostly, because wanting to trust is a powerful narcotic. Still, there were moments I now replay frame by frame. The night his credit card declined at a restaurant, and he joked, "Fraud alert thinks I'm too fun." The time I found a receipt for a boutique hotel spa, not in my name, not on a date I could place, and he chuckled, "Client gift, they reimburse." When I got a 1099 for freelance I never did, he waved it off as a mix-up. I'll call them, he said, then changed the subject by booking a weekend cabin. He liked to make me feel gentle. You're my calm, he'd say, as if calm were a role I signed for. When I pushed, he'd widen his eyes and whisper, please don't fight tonight. I have an early start. If I grew quiet, he'd tilt his head. You're not mad at me, are you? Not a question seeking truth, an invitation to mother him back into comfort. The worst was a party 2 months before the hotel. A mutual friend got a promotion, and the living room swelled with congratulations. Mark held court by the snack table, whiskey sparkling in hand. Someone asked how we kept it so stable, and he laughed, loud enough that faces turned. Emily's loyalty is legendary, he said, like a toast. Boring but bulletproof. People laughed because the word boring wore a wink, and I laughed too, because I had learned that resisting a joke makes you the punchline. Later, in the car, I said it stung. He stared through the windshield. It was a compliment. Don't be sensitive. Claire clocked it even then. On the drive home from the same party, she'd ridden with us. She texted me from the back seat. You good? That comment wasn't cool. I shrugged it off with a thumbs-up emoji I didn't feel. The next day, she sent a longer message. Boring loyalty is code for, I count on you not to ask questions. Be careful. I put the phone face down and scrubbed the sink like it owed me money. I don't know when I began apologizing for everything. For asking what time he'd be home. For reminding him about the water bill. For noticing his cologne smelled different. He rewarded apologies with tenderness, and tenderness kept me in place. Maybe that's the whole story of years 2 through 4. I managed the quiet corners. He curated the spotlight. He was the man who ordered charcuterie on dates and grinned at bartenders like they were co-conspirators. I was the woman who packed granola bars in her bag, just in case, and reminded him to hydrate. We fit until we didn't. In our 5th year, my father got sick and I became the designated daughter. Rides, appointments, forms. Mark brought flowers, posted a filtered photo, and told everyone, Emily's a saint. He also started coming home later. Grief can fog a room. People can move through it like ghosts. When I surfaced, he'd already built a new schedule I wasn't invited to read. The week before the hotel, he made the loyalty joke again, this time at a client happy hour he dragged me to. M's loyalty is the most reliable line item in our household. He quipped as a woman with red nails laughed into her drink. I watched his hand hover at the small of her back. I told myself I was jealous because I was tired. I told myself everything except the thing I felt in my bones. Something had curdled in the middle of us, and he called it growth. That night in bed I asked, softly, do you still want this? Us. He sighed dramatically, the way people do when they're auditioning for sympathy. Of course, he said, then rolled away. Just try not to make everything heavy, okay? I lay awake counting promises like sheep and wondering how many were already asleep for good. Then the bank text buzzed again, demanding urgent verification, not optional. The text from the bank blinked across my phone screen at 6:42 a.m. Reminder, your loan payment is past due. Please contact us immediately to avoid penalty. I sat up, hair tangled, eyes burning. Loan payment? I hadn't applied for a loan. My salary covered rent, groceries, and a little savings. We used Mark's income for extras. At least that's what he always told me. I called the number, heart slamming. A woman named Karen pulled up the file. Mrs. Porter, she said, polite and efficient. This is regarding the personal loan opened last spring, $18,000. Payments have been irregular. Opened by who? My voice cracked. By you. Application signed Emily Porter, Social Security ending in. She rattled off my exact number. I hung up. My hands shook so hard the phone clattered on the nightstand. I staggered into the kitchen where Mark stood in boxers, buttering toast like it was any Tuesday. Mark, I said, breath ragged. Did you take a loan out in my name? He blinked, toast halfway to his mouth. What? No. That must be some scam. Don't give them info. They had my social, I snapped. My name. My signature. He set the knife down too carefully. Okay, calm down. Maybe I filed something by mistake when we were refinancing the car. That was 2 years ago. Then maybe a bank error. Chill, Em. He reached for me, but I pulled back. His face tightened, then softened into what I recognized too well, damage control. Look, I'll call them later. Don't stress yourself. You know you get anxious with this stuff. The gaslighting was so smooth, I almost doubted myself. Almost. Over the next weeks, new anomalies stacked like dirty dishes. His phone pinged constantly, but stayed face down. When I asked about unfamiliar charges, boutique hotels, high-end restaurants, he grinned. Client perks, babe. You think I'd take you to Applebee's after a 12-hour pitch? He kissed my forehead. Relax. You know I'd never let us drown in debt. But we were drowning. My credit score plummeted. A new card I hadn't requested arrived in the mail. When I confronted him, he waved it away. I must have ticked the wrong box on a form. Stop overthinking. One night, I picked up his phone when he left it charging in the kitchen. The passcode had changed again. Work security, he explained, too fast. Claire noticed my tension. At brunch, she leaned over the table, eyes sharp. He's hiding something, Em. He's just busy, I muttered, pushing eggs around my plate. Busy doesn't explain mystery loans and locked phones. I wanted to defend him, but the word stuck. Claire reached across the table, squeezing my hand. You've always been loyal. Don't let loyalty blind you. Her words gnawed at me. That night, I searched the drawer where Mark tossed receipts. Buried under grocery slips was an invoice from a jewelry store. Date, 3 weeks ago. Item, diamond bracelet. Recipient, no name. He never gave it to me. I sat on the floor staring at the paper, my chest hollow. The toast, the forehead kisses, the dismissals, they weren't love, they were smokescreens. And though I tried to swallow the truth, it clawed its way back up every time. My husband wasn't just careless. He was building a second life, and I was financing it. The party was at a downtown rooftop bar, all glass walls and string lights swaying against the night sky. Mark insisted I come, though I was exhausted from work. Just smile, Em, he said while adjusting his tie in the mirror. People notice when a wife doesn't support her husband. Don't make me look bad. The words stung more than he realized. Don't make me look bad. Not I want you there. Not I'd feel proud to have you by my side. Just a warning, a threat wrapped in silk. At the bar, he morphed into the man everyone adored. Laughing too loud, clapping shoulders, making toasts with expensive bourbon he'd never buy at home. I stood by the railing, nursing a watered-down cocktail, feeling invisible. Claire had come as my +1 for fun, but really she came to watch over me. She spotted me across the room and mouthed, "You okay?" I nodded, but my throat was tight. Then it happened. One of his colleagues asked, "So Mark, what's your secret to balancing everything? Work, marriage, social life. How do you do it?" Mark smirked, eyes sweeping the room until they landed on me. "Easy. Emily's boringly loyal. She keeps the house running while I keep life interesting." The group laughed. I felt heat rise from my collar to my ears. Claire's jaw dropped. She put her glass down hard, the sound like a gunshot against the chatter. "Wow," she said, her voice sharp. "Guess loyalty isn't flashy enough for applause, huh?" Mark's smile faltered. "Relax, Claire, it's a joke." "No," she shot back, "it's not. It's a truth dressed as humor, and you know it." The group grew silent. Mark waved it off with a laugh, but I could see his jaw twitch. "Ignore her," he said. "Emily knows I'm teasing." But I didn't laugh. I didn't even smile. I excused myself to the bathroom, hands trembling, stomach in knots. On the Uber ride home, Mark hissed, "You embarrassed me. You embarrassed me," I said, voice low, shaking. He clenched his fist on his thigh. "Stop dramatizing. Everyone knows I was kidding. Don't sabotage me like that again." When we got home, he slammed the bedroom door. I sat alone on the couch, replaying his words, Claire's defense, the laughter. My chest felt like cracked glass. Restless, I picked up his laptop bag left by the coffee table. Inside, along with folders and receipts, his phone buzzed, still locked. But the screen flashed just long enough for me to see a preview. "Last night was amazing. Can't wait until next time. XOJ. I froze. My hands shook as I slipped the phone back. It buzzed again. Another message. "You need to tell her eventually. Secrets get messy." That night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to his steady snores, wondering how many lies lived in his chest while I drowned in silence. I waited until Mark's shower hissed the next morning before sneaking his phone from the nightstand. My hands shook so violently I almost dropped it, but Claire had shown me once how to bypass the lock with his backup fingerprint. He'd registered my thumbprint years ago, back when trust still felt easy. The message thread unfolded like a knife. Dozens of texts from a woman named Jenna, some romantic, some practical. Dinner reservations. Hotel confirmations. Photos of cocktails clinking. One message read, "Your wife seems clueless. How long can you keep this up?" Another, "You promised the bracelet wasn't for her. I'm holding you to that." The diamond bracelet invoice. My stomach lurched. I screenshotted everything and sent it to Claire with shaking fingers. Her reply came in seconds. "Come to me. Now." But I didn't move. Mark emerged from the shower, humming, towel slung around his waist like he hadn't detonated our life. He kissed my forehead. Routine, automatic. "Don't forget we've got dinner with clients tonight. Wear the blue dress. You look sophisticated in it." I stepped back. "Who's Jenna?" His eyes narrowed just enough to betray him. Then he laughed, sharp and dismissive. "God, Emily, you're snooping again? She's a coworker. Calm down." I saw the messages. My voice cracked, but stayed steady. The laugh vanished. His jaw set. "You went through my phone? You went through our marriage like it was disposable." I snapped. For the first time, he didn't even try to deny it. "So what? We've been drifting. You don't understand pressure, the image I have to maintain." Jenna gets it. She makes me feel alive. Alive. The word landed like a slap. What did that make me, dead weight? I packed a duffel with shaking hands. He didn't stop me. He didn't apologize. He just muttered, "You'll be back. You can't survive without me." I went to Claire's that night, sobbing into her couch cushions. She stroked my hair like when we were kids. "You're not going back," she said firmly. "You hear me? You're stronger than you think." But the fallout spread fast. Some friends took Mark's side, whispering that I must have been too cold, too distracted. His mother called me, voice icy. "Marriage is work, Emily. Don't throw away 5 years because of one mistake." "One mistake?" I croaked. "It's an entire double life." She hung up. For days I drifted in a fog. Work felt impossible. Food tasted like cardboard. I stared at the ceiling at night in Claire's guest room, wondering how to rebuild a life when mine had been hollowed out. Mark didn't text apologies. He texted demands. "Return the car. I paid for it. Stop spreading lies. You'll regret this. You were never enough." Each message cut deeper, until Claire took my phone and blocked his number. "You need space to breathe," she insisted. Still, grief pressed down like wet concrete. 5 years of my life gone. The man I thought I'd grow old with, rotted into a stranger before my eyes. And just when I thought it couldn't get worse, an envelope arrived in Claire's mailbox with my name printed neatly across the front. The envelope was thin, but heavy in implication. A crisp logo from a financing company sat in the corner, one I didn't recognize. I tore it open, expecting another overdue notice for that phantom loan. Instead, I stared at a delinquency alert for a car lease in my name. A car I had never seen. Claire sat across the kitchen table, sipping coffee. "What is it?" I handed it to her. She read it once, then again, her brows knitting together. "Emily, this says you're behind on payments for a Lexus." I shook my head. "We drive a Honda. Always have. I've never even test-driven a Lexus." Claire set the paper down and met my eyes. "He's using your identity." The words dropped like stones. My chest tightened. "But how? Why?" "Because loyalty was your brand, remember? He knew you wouldn't question. He probably forged your signature, used your social." I pressed my palms to my forehead. "Oh my God, he's not just cheating on me. He's ruining me." Claire leaned closer. "This isn't just infidelity. It's financial abuse." The phrase seared me. Abuse. I'd thought of myself as heartbroken, betrayed, abandoned. But abused? That word clamped around my throat. The next day, I requested a credit report. It took 15 minutes for the page to load and my stomach to sink. 3 credit cards. 2 loans. 1 lease. All in my name. Balances I couldn't dream of paying. I sat frozen at my desk, staring at numbers like a foreign language. Claire called on her lunch break. "What did you find?" I whispered. "He's stolen 5 years in my future." That evening, I confronted him outside his office. He stepped out in a tailored suit, phone to his ear, smiling at a colleague. When he saw me, the smile vanished. "Emily, what the hell are you doing here? You ruined my credit," I hissed. "You signed my name on loans. You leased a car under me. Why?" He scoffed, lowering his voice. "Don't be dramatic. I needed liquidity. It's not a big deal." "Not a big deal." I shoved the notice into his hand. "This could bankrupt me." He folded the paper and slipped it into his pocket. Stop making scenes. You'll only humiliate yourself. For a moment, I saw the mask slip. The arrogance, the calculation, the certainty that I'd keep quiet. That I'd protect his image, like always. I stepped back, shaking. I'm done protecting you. He smirked. You won't do anything. You don't have the guts. I walked away before the tears spilled, his laughter echoing behind me like nails on glass. That night, Claire sat with me while I scrolled through the mess on my credit report again. We need help, she said. Someone who knows how to fight this. And that's when Ms. Green's name first appeared in our search results, a lawyer who specialized in fraud and financial abuse. Ms. Green's office smelled faintly of lemon polish and paper. Rows of case files towered behind her desk, neat but intimidating. She wore glasses on a silver chain and had the kind of gaze that seemed to see straight through excuses. Claire sat beside me, squeezing my hand under the table. I handed over the envelope, the credit report, the loan notices, all of it. My voice shook as I explained what I'd found. Ms. Green flipped through the pages, nodding slowly. This isn't sloppiness. This is deliberate. He forged your signature more than once. And he tied accounts directly to his employer reimbursements. That means he's skimming. Skimming? I asked, my throat dry. She leaned forward. He's funneling business expenses through accounts in your name. When reimbursements come in, he pockets the difference. It looks like you're carrying the debt. He keeps the cash. My stomach dropped. Claire muttered a curse under her breath. Ms. Green slid a legal pad toward me. Here's what we need. Copies of every joint statement, email confirmations, and any receipts you can find. We'll trace his trail. For the next week, I lived in paperwork hell. I dug through drawers, shoeboxes, and email folders. I found a lease agreement dated 6 months ago, my signature scrawled in handwriting that looked close, but not mine. I found an email thread where he submitted expense reports, one in my name. And tucked behind a stack of old magazines, I found a second phone. Claire whistled when I showed her. Classic. The burner. On it, we discovered dozens of messages to Jenna, but also conversations with vendors, florists, caterers, a travel agent. Bookings made in my name, billed to accounts tied to me, but connected to trips I never took. One florist invoice read, arrangement for anniversary, invoice to Emily Porter. The date? A week he'd been on a business trip. I stared at the phone until my vision blurred. He's building a life on my back. Claire rubbed my shoulder. And now we've got proof. Ms. Green was meticulous. She highlighted dates, cross-referenced invoices with expense reports, and printed copies of every fraudulent document. He thinks he's clever, she said, tapping a forged signature. But timestamps don't lie. Then came the clincher, a reimbursement record from his company showing he'd submitted a $3,200 catering invoice, reimbursed under my name, deposited into an account I didn't recognize. When traced, it linked back to a private account, sole owner, Mark Porter. This, Ms. Green said firmly, is fraud. And if his employer finds out, he's finished. For the first time in weeks, I felt air fill my lungs. Fear mixed with fury, but also a spark of power. I wasn't helpless. Claire leaned in, her voice low. So, what do you want to do? Protect him? Or expose him? I stared at the pile of evidence, each page a betrayal written in ink. I thought the texts with Jenna were the deepest cut, but staring at Ms. Green's stack of evidence, I realized I'd only glimpsed the tip of a much darker iceberg. This wasn't just about a wandering husband. It was about survival. She pushed a fresh folder across the desk. Emily, we subpoenaed bank statements linked to the accounts Mark set up. Look here. The numbers nearly made me dizzy. Thousands moving in and out, deposits labeled as vendor reimbursements, consulting fees, even personal loans. Ms. Green's pen tapped a line highlighted in yellow. See that? These are gambling transactions. Online betting platforms, disguised as vendor payouts. I covered my mouth. Gambling. He hadn't just betrayed me emotionally. He was gambling with my name, my future. Claire's jaw clenched. How much is she on the hook for? Ms. Green adjusted her glasses. At least $45,000 in Emily's name alone. Likely more. I felt hollow. So, my loyalty wasn't just boring. It was profitable. The words hung heavy. Claire gripped my hand. He's been using you like an ATM. It was true. Every bouquet Jenna received, every fancy dinner, every spa trip, it was all stolen from my credit. And then I remembered that cruel line at the party, him smirking in front of strangers. Emily's boring loyalty is the most reliable line item in our household. It wasn't a joke. It was a confession. That night, I sat in Claire's kitchen, staring at my own reflection in the dark window. How had I not seen it sooner? All the late nights, the dismissive answers, the secrecy. It wasn't just cheating, it was a system. A double life powered by deception. Claire broke the silence. So what now? Do we go to HR? The police? I shook my head. Not yet. If we go too soon, he'll spin it. He'll say I'm hysterical. He'll bury me under charm. Ms. Green agreed when I called her the next morning. We need more. Harder evidence. Emails, receipts, screenshots. We'll build a case he can't wriggle out of. And Emily, don't warn him. Don't confront him yet. That advice was harder than I thought. Every time Mark texted, demanding clothes, pretending normal, accusing me of being vindictive, I wanted to scream the truth into his smug face. But instead, I bit my tongue and screenshot everything. And then came the blow I didn't expect. While combing through the burner phone again, Claire found a thread of messages not with Jenna, but with a contact saved only as D. The tone was different, colder, transactional. Messages about meeting the quota, clearing the ledger, and don't let her catch on. Screenshots showed wire transfers. Who the hell is D? Claire whispered. I scrolled, my chest pounding, until I reached a final message from Mark to D. Don't worry. Emily will keep paying. She always does. I stared at that final message until the letters blurred. Emily will keep paying. She always does. It was worse than betrayal. It was dismissal, a sentence handed down like I was nothing more than a walking balance sheet. My marriage hadn't failed because I was unlovable. It had been engineered, from day one, to keep me docile and useful. Claire slammed her hand on the table. That's it. We take him down. No more waiting. But Ms. Green was cautious when we met her again. Evidence wins cases. Rage doesn't. If you want freedom without financial ruin, we do this right. That means patience. I nodded, even though my insides screamed for action. So what's our first step? She laid it out carefully, like a general planning a war. 1. Gather statements. Every fraudulent transaction tied to my name needed copying. 2. Collect communications, screenshots of texts, burner phone logs, and any emails Mark left behind. 3. Secure witnesses, people who'd seen the behavior, Claire at the parties, maybe co-workers who noticed discrepancies. 4. Prepare confrontation, a setting where Mark couldn't twist the story. Neutral ground, professionals present. Think of it as a trap, Ms. Green said. He'll walk in expecting sympathy. We'll give him evidence instead. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake in Claire's guest room, staring at the ceiling. The man I married, the man I cooked for, the man who kissed my forehead every morning, was also the man plotting with D to bleed me dry. I whispered into the dark. Why wasn't I enough? Claire's voice came through the cracked door. Because he wasn't enough. Stop carrying his sins. The plan gave me something I hadn't had in weeks. Direction. Each day I compiled proof, filing it into folders Ms. Green provided. It was grueling, humiliating work. Every line item was a reminder of my blindness. Every forged signature screamed my name without my consent. But with each page, the scales shifted. I wasn't just a victim cataloging pain. I was a witness building a case. Claire kept me steady, sliding coffee across the table, cracking jokes when the silence got too heavy. When this is over, she said, we're burning sage in your whole damn apartment. And maybe his suits. I almost smiled. Almost. Then, one evening as I organized receipts, an email popped into my inbox. Subject, urgent, loan account overdue. It was another debt under my name, but this time the contact email on file wasn't mine. It was Mark's personal address. Claire leaned over my shoulder. Proof he tied it directly to himself. This is gold. Ms. Green agreed. This could nail him. But Emily, you need to prepare. He won't roll over quietly. Men like this double down when cornered. She was right. Because the closer we got to exposing him, the more desperate and dangerous Mark became. The knock at Claire's door rattled the frame. I froze, clutching the folder of statements. Claire peeked through the peephole and hissed, It's him. Mark stood outside, grinning with a bouquet of roses so red they looked fake. His tie was loosened, hair perfectly styled, like he'd rehearsed for this moment. Claire unlocked the chain just enough to speak. You're not welcome here, Mark. Come on, Claire, he said smoothly. Don't play gatekeeper. I just want to talk to my wife. I called back through the door, voice steady though my hands trembled. I'm not your wife anymore. His smile faltered for half a second, then returned sharper. Emily, don't be cruel. We had 5 years together. Don't throw it away over a misunderstanding. Claire barked a laugh. Cheating, forgery, fraud. Pick your word. They're all bigger than misunderstanding. Mark's jaw twitched. This isn't you, Em. You don't talk like this. She's poisoning you against me. I finally opened the door a crack, enough to look him in the eyes. I saw the bank records, Mark. I know about the forged loans, the gambling, the burner phone. Stop pretending. For a flicker, the mask slipped. His eyes hardened, and the charming tone dropped. You really think anyone will believe you? You've always been anxious, forgetful. People know you overreact. Gaslighting, rehearsed and ready. But I didn't flinch. I have proof. Timestamps, receipts, emails with your name. This isn't about belief. It's about facts. He tried again, voice softening. Em, please. I made mistakes. But I love you. We can fix this. Behind me, Claire whispered fiercely, don't cave. Not now. I tightened my grip on the folder. You don't love me, Mark. You loved what you could take from me. His smile broke, teeth bared now. You think some lawyer will save you? You're nothing without me. Nobody. You'll regret dragging my name through the mud. Funny. Claire shot back, because your name's already covered in it. Mark slammed the roses against the doorframe, petals scattering like blood. You'll regret this, he snarled, before storming down the hall. I sank to the floor once he was gone, heart hammering so loud I could barely hear Claire locking the door again. She crouched beside me, steadying my hands. He's scared. That's good. Scared men make mistakes. I nodded, clutching the folder to my chest. Then it's time. No more waiting. We set the trap. Ms. Green's voice was steady when she called. It's set. Tomorrow afternoon. Conference room at his office. HR will be there, along with corporate legal. This is your chance, Emily, but you have to keep calm. Let the evidence do the talking. I agreed, though my stomach twisted into knots. For days I'd fantasized about screaming at Mark, unloading every wound he'd carved into me. But Ms. Green was right. Rage could be dismissed, facts could not. Claire came with me for support, sitting in the back with her arms crossed like a bodyguard. MS. Green spread the folders across the table, color-coded tabs sticking out like weapons. A representative from HR sat stiffly with a notepad, while a man from legal tapped a pen against his knee. Mark walked in last. He wore his most polished suit, but his eyes darted when he saw me. He said, slipping into that practiced smile. You didn't have to go this far. Sit, Ms. Green instructed. He did, jaw tight. I'm here out of respect. But let's not drag personal drama into professional spaces. That's exactly what you did, Ms. Green replied coolly. She slid a sheet across the table. Expense report, May 14th. Submitted under Emily Porter's name, reimbursed by your employer, deposited into an account not tied to her. Would you like to explain? Mark glanced at it, then leaned back. Clerical error. Happens all the time. Another sheet slid forward. June 2nd. Loan application, forged signature. Same handwriting on every fraudulent form. Independent analysis confirms it's yours. His smile faltered. I don't know what she's feeding you, but... HR cut him off. Mr. Porter, if these documents are authentic, this isn't a marital issue. It's corporate fraud. Mark's eyes flicked to me, venom sharp. You think this makes you strong? You're burning both of us down. Ms. Green didn't blink. Only one of you lit the fire. Then she pulled out the clincher, the burner phone, screen lit with the thread to D. She handed it to the legal rep. Please read the last message aloud. He cleared his throat. Don't worry. Emily will keep paying. She always does. Silence thickened. Mark's mask crumbled. You can't prove that was me. Anyone could. HR cut in again, voice clipped. We'll be seizing your accounts immediately pending investigation. I exhaled for the first time in weeks. The trap had sprung. Mark slammed his palm against the table, eyes wild. You ungrateful bitch. I gave you everything, and you're throwing it away. I met his fury with steady calm. You didn't give me anything, Mark. You took. The conference room door creaked open, and 2 security officers stepped inside. They didn't look at me, didn't look at Ms. Green, They looked straight at Mark. One officer said evenly, "Mr. Porter, we need you to come with us." Mark's face drained, then darkened to crimson. "This is insane," he barked. "I'm the top performer here. You can't treat me like a criminal because my bitter wife wants revenge." "Ex-wife," I corrected softly, my voice steady for the first time in months. He spun toward me, eyes blazing. "You think you've won? You've destroyed your own life. Do you know how stupid you look airing this in public?" Ms. Green leaned forward, calm as ice. "The only person who destroyed Emily's life is you. And now the record reflects it." HR slid another folder across the table. Copies of my credit report, forged loan applications, and expense reimbursements linked to Mark's personal account. "We've confirmed with our compliance team. This isn't just unethical. It's illegal." Mark's bravado cracked. His voice rose in desperation, nearly a shout. "Those accounts weren't mine. Someone else must have." Claire interrupted from the back of the room, her tone like a blade. "Then why does the phone in your drawer have messages confirming every move?" The legal counsel held up the burner phone, sealed in an evidence bag now. "This device was turned in this morning. Chain of custody intact. The messages are time-stamped, geotagged, and authenticated." Mark's composure shattered. He slammed his fists on the table, sending a folder flying. "You can't do this to me. I built this image, this career. And you build it on Emily's back," Ms. Green cut in. "On forged signatures, stolen credit, and lies." The security officers moved closer. Mark's shoulders sagged for the first time, but his mouth kept running. "She was nothing without me. Just a quiet little clerk nobody noticed. I made her somebody." The words didn't sting the way he intended. They clarified everything. He hadn't married me out of love. He'd recruited me as cover. My loyalty, my credit, my silence. Tools in his kit. I stood slowly, gathering the files in front of me. My hands no longer shook. "You made me smaller so you could feel big. But I'm done living in your shadow." The officers each took one of his arms. He thrashed once, then went limp, muttering curses under his breath as they pulled him toward the door. He turned his head back at me, voice dripping venom. "You'll regret this, Emily. Without me, you're nothing." I met his eyes one last time. "Without you, I'm finally free." The door shut behind him, leaving only the echo of his words and the weight of proof that he was finished. The whispers started before the conference room door even closed. Employees loitered in the hallway, pretending to scroll their phones, ears straining for gossip. By the time Claire and I stepped out, half the floor already knew something seismic had cracked in their Golden Boys facade. That afternoon, Ms. Green called me. "Emily, corporate moved quickly. They've frozen Mark's reimbursements and launched a formal investigation. His accounts tied to your name are flagged. This will snowball fast." She wasn't exaggerating. Within 2 days, HR emailed me copies of their preliminary findings. Dozens of fraudulent expense reports, all tied back to Mark's burner phone. Compliance had alerted regulators, and whispers turned into formal charges. But while his professional life crumbled, my personal world was a storm. Mark's mother left me a scathing voicemail. "How dare you humiliate my son this way? Marriage is about forgiveness, not betrayal." Claire played it on speaker, rolling her eyes. "Forgiveness doesn't cover felony fraud, lady." Still, the guilt gnawed. I'd loved him once. We'd shared a bed, dreams, routines. Now he was unraveling publicly, and I was the one holding the thread. The cost came quick. Lawyers' fees, freezing my credit, rebuilding accounts. Nights where I stared at ceilings, wondering if I'd ever trust again. Social media buzzed with half-truths. Posts from Mark's friends calling me vindictive, or worse, unstable. But something else grew too, relief. For the first time in years, I had space to breathe. No locked phones buzzing with secrets. No sudden bills in my name. No cruel jokes disguised as humor. Just quiet. Heavy but mine. Claire noticed. "You're lighter," she said one evening as we shared takeout. "Still broken in places, but lighter." I exhaled. Because for once, the truth is on my side. Meanwhile, Mark tried everything. Calls from blocked numbers, rambling emails, even letters left at my old apartment. Claire intercepted one. "Emily, I can fix this if you just stop now." But the investigation rolled on without me lifting a finger. Ms. Green explained it plainly. "He's not just losing you, Emily. He's losing his career, his reputation, and possibly his freedom." The weight of that truth left me sleepless. Had I burned too much? Or was this the only way to reclaim myself? One morning, sipping coffee at Claire's kitchen table, I opened my inbox to a new message. This one wasn't from Mark, or HR, or Ms. Green. It was from someone I hadn't expected at all. At first, I thought the email was spam. Daniel Carter, we should talk. The name tugged at something in memory. Then it clicked. The CEO who'd once shaken my hand at a charity fundraiser Mark dragged me to. He'd made polite conversation about books while Mark schmoozed donors, and I'd never seen him again. I opened the message with trembling fingers. Emily, I was informed of Mark Porter's investigation. I want you to know you are not alone. If you'd like, I can connect you with resources, legal, financial, even personal. You showed grace that night at the fundraiser, and I never forgot it. Let's meet for coffee. No pressure. I sat back, stunned. Claire peeked over my shoulder. Well, that's unexpected. I laughed shakily. Yeah, CEOs don't usually email burned-out ex-wives. But something about his tone wasn't opportunistic. It was steady, genuine. And after weeks of venom from Mark and whispers from his circle, kindness felt like oxygen. We met at a quiet cafe. Daniel arrived in a dark suit, but his smile wasn't corporate, it was warm. Emily, he said simply, sliding into the booth. You've been through hell. I nodded, voice small. Feels like it. He didn't rush me. He asked about my work, my hobbies, the classes I used to take at night before Mark drained me dry. With Daniel, silence wasn't heavy. It was safe. Weeks turned into months. Our coffee chats grew into dinners, walks in the park, long talks about resilience. He never pushed, never treated me like a charity case. Instead, he said things like, your strength isn't in what you endured. It's in how you refuse to stay silent. Meanwhile, my practical life healed in pieces. Therapy sessions where I learned to recognize gaslighting for what it was. Ms. Green guided me through debt restructuring. Claire cheered when my credit score crept upward, one stubborn digit at a time. Mark faded into the background, facing charges, out of work, scrambling for sympathy that never came. I didn't track him. I didn't need to. His downfall wasn't my life anymore. Daniel, on the other hand, became part of my new one. He didn't complete me. He reminded me I was already whole. And somewhere along the way, affection deepened into love. One evening, under soft restaurant lights, he reached across the table and said, Emily, you don't owe me your past, but I'd be honored to share your future. Tears stung my eyes, but they were different this time. Not grief, not loss. Relief. Hope. I whispered, yes. The garden was awash in late spring sunlight, roses blooming like they had waited for this day too. Claire stood beside me as maid of honor, grinning through tears. When Daniel slipped the ring on my finger, I didn't feel like a woman defined by betrayal anymore. I felt like someone who had chosen, finally, for herself. The vows were simple. No grand gestures, no promises drenched in performance. Daniel said, I will never use your loyalty against you. I will honor it. That line hit me deeper than he could know, because loyalty had once been my prison, and now it was being given back to me as a gift. After the ceremony, as laughter floated across the garden, I stepped aside for a quiet moment. The sunlight caught the silver band on my hand, and I thought about the woman who once sat on Claire's couch, shattered by a text preview on a phone screen. That Emily was gone, but she had built the path that led me here. I learned that betrayal doesn't define you. It reveals others. And when someone shows you who they are, believe them. Mark showed me, over and over, but I was too scared to look. Now I know better. For anyone listening, check the paper trail. Don't ignore red flags because you're afraid of rocking the boat. Ask hard questions. Loyalty isn't silence, it's truth. The costs were real, financially, emotionally, socially. But freedom has a value no ledger can calculate. Today, I stand not just as Daniel's wife, but as Emily, whole, healed, and unashamed. So when people ask how I went from a cheating husband to marrying a CEO, I tell them this. It wasn't about trading up. It was about finally believing I was worth choosing, and choosing myself first.